we have a treat and we have a pretty unusual episode for you here today. One of the tweets posts which has really blown up last week, and if you've been online, you've definitely seen this. That is a teenager in Waterloo who decided, A, build a nuclear fusor, which I had to look up what it was, and trust me, it's no little thing, in his college dorm room, but B, using Claude Sonnet and using AI tools in a very interesting native way to go make it happen. And I think this post went super viral. I'm looking at it now. It has almost 3 million views in climbing, and people just going like, what the F, right? Like, how is a teenager doing this? The sort of the amazing daring do, the hacker spirit, the fact that somebody can just do this on their own, and how AI was just used in such a fun, new, interesting way. I think every once in a while you get something online where it makes people go like, I'm seeing a glimpse of the future. And this was definitely one of those. So what Aarthi and I decided to do is we decided to reach out. And so we are delighted to have Hudhayfa Nazoordeen, but I think everyone calls him HudZah. He's at HudZah on X and on a lot of other places. And and he's kind of like the person of the moment. So, but HudZah, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this conversation. I'm very excited to kind of give a glimpse into the future, like you said. So I think this will be very fun.
Well, we're going to get into all of that, but maybe before we get started, just tell us just a bit more about you. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm originally very much a software person. Like hardware is something very much out of my domain. I study math at Waterloo, and I used to live in Sri Lanka for a lot of my life. So I grew up there and then moved to Canada in 2021 to start, university at Waterloo. And since then, it was always just kind of like intrigue around like software, like how to make software feel like magic, and how do you make like things extremely automated and just making things to solve a lot of my problems. But I think over the summer, like something changed a bit, and I was like, wait, I feel like I can do a bit more. And I was quite not satisfied with my work with software anymore. And so I was like, okay, I want to do something a bit harder. And I was just trying to think of like, what's the hardest thing I can do that's like within my grasp. This project kind of just like came out. I was like, okay, I can do that. Yeah, eventually wanted to get it done, and as quickly as possible too, because I wanted to work on other things as well.
This is funny because I just spoke to you yesterday and I was like, we have to get this guy on the podcast immediately. And there were so many things, first of all, there's so many things just quite interesting. The fact that you've been able to do this at such a young age. But maybe one interesting which really stood for me when I talked to you was I have to say you made me feel really boomer on how I use AI tools today, because you have really integrated ChatGPT, Claude into your workflow, and even before we get all the nuclear stuff, right? So could you maybe talk to us about how you've been using Sonnet, ChatGPT, and just like your regular workflow?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen right now, so just let me know if you see anything.
We can.
But this is kind of like I just have like my full lineup of the AI tools I use on a day-to-day basis. And when I say I use AI tools, like I kind of use it from a lot of aspects of asking questions about like, say, food or something, giving pictures of something and being like, okay, what is this plant? Or just like anything technical, really. I also use like the other typical stuff. Everyone's been talking about Cursor. I've been using Cursor for like 1.5 years now at this point, and I'm like on a full pro plan. I've been paying for like GPT for a very, very long time, and recently I switched to Claude. So I've been using this for quite a long time and try like almost every single like new tool that kind of comes out, and like how can I like access all my information together into one place. So I think this was like a real game changer when like Claude projects came out. So one way is Claude projects is like to learn. And in this case is like I have this certain like project called speedrunning ideation. And it's like it's like a very specific like instruction that says like, oh, you're the best doer in the world. You can build anything and just break it down into step by step, and then recursively for each step, break it down into more steps. So for example, like for my fusor, actually, I'll give you a simpler one for like a page summarizer Chrome extension. And how this would do it is it would start with giving me like a breakdown of like, what do I need to build for this thing? So Chrome extension, page content summarization algorithm, a UI, and so on. And then it would break down each part into more, recursively break it down into more steps, and then more steps, and then more steps. And then it would break it down to a point where it would just start creating everything. And so this is step 1.1. It would just create the manifest.json, set up background script, create a content script, and then just keep going for every single script. And what I've built is just like an MVP now in like a matter of 1 minute. And so this, I think, in itself is like an incredibly powerful, like, speed up. Even if it's completely wrong, doesn't work, you have like the absolute boilerplate for things. And that's like extremely useful. Same with the fusor. So even for a project like this, I want to build a fusor, very simple one.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to have to stop you here because our audience and me, we're going to have this question, which is, what is a fusor?
Yeah. So
and why did you want to build one?
No, honestly, great question. But I think first, what is a fusor? It is a device that has like a very high, strong electric field, and that induces like a very strong, amount of temperature on like ions inside this device, and it kind of accelerates them and creates like plasma. So usually for the full fusor, it would get so hot that it would start undergoing nuclear fusion. And this happens because of a cathode and anode. So in the case of my setup, it was like the shaker protein ball as the cathode and the outside shell as the anode. What I actually built was a demo fusor. So this was step one of the full fusor. So in the next month, I'm going to like try and achieve nuclear fusion by then, somewhere probably. And that's kind of like my target timeline. It's like 21 days from now. Yeah. So the first part, like,
how much like prior knowledge did you have before? I saw your tweet, I saw your video. Like how much of this was like you sort of know what you're doing and you wanted to sort of build this and prove that Claude could do it versus like not really much in the sort of form of context. Like how much context do you have?
Yeah, so like generally, race, I had no context. I had no idea. I'm like a software bro. I just make like create React apps and like GPT wrappers. Like it's definitely like it's something I know I can do. It's just like I've not done it. Especially working with high voltage, I was like holy shit, I'm quite scared of this because it's like 12,000 volts, like 5,000 volts at like 30 milliamps will instantly kill you. So I was like extremely paranoid, and part of the reasons why I built this one was
like
friend
React code, going from like React code for page summarizer to a nuclear fusor. Like there's a few leaps in there.
I have to ask why. I mean, what made you wake up one morning and go, well, instead of slinging React code and fixing CSS style issues, you're like, I'm going to build this. And I will say, we've had many interesting things here on our show. I'm going to achieve fusion in 21 days is definitely up there as one of the more interesting sentences that have been occurred. What made you wake up one morning and said, well, I'm going to try and make fusion happen in my, small college room?
Yeah, I think me generally, I have like low activation energy to get things done. So when a friend of mine, Olivia, was talking to me about this and she was like showing me her setup, and I was like, dude, if she can do it, like, why can't I? And like, I met her at this place called Edge Esmeralda, which is like a pop-up city in California. And we were talking about this. And then immediately after talking to her, I just started looking into it. So I went to this forum called fusor.net and just started reading. And I was like extremely confused. Like I had no idea what was going on. But then like just slowly feeding this into like just Googling things, like using AI for things, I was slowly getting a better picture. And then I was like, okay, like I'm just going to do it. I'm on a gap term. I don't have a job. Like there's nothing like stopping me. So yeah, I don't really have a better answer than I was just like, I just want to make it. I just wanted to exist. And
so damn cool. So cool. Okay. All right. So now you want to do this. And I would say, a few years ago, somebody wanted to do this, or maybe a lot of people now, the way they would do it is, okay, I'm going to start Googling things. I'm going to collect like a Dropbox or Google Drive folder. I'm going to collect all of the assets, the information. But you sort of been, I would say, sticking everything into Sonnet. I would say why, and maybe you can kind of show us what you've been doing also.
Yeah, of course. So I want to stick all of this in Sonnet for the sake of context. Because of my lack of context, I want to have like almost like a very good EA who's very good at building hardware or has the knowledge of building hardware. Maybe not the actual like technical skills by hand. And so what that actually looks like is if I go into like Claude projects, I built this for the fusor. I would dump all like information, email conversations I had with people over the internet. These are very long chains of conversations. I would just take everything and dump it in here. And what this allows me to do is I can quickly retrieve things from almost like second brain. So I can just be like, this person, what did Aiden use for his vacuum? And it could immediately just like do like really good RAG on it based on all this information and just give me answers very fast and save me a ton of time instead of just like searching on like Superhuman or Gmail or whatever. And of course, it's a lot slower because there's so much knowledge. But yeah, I can just get instantly like all this information and it just pulls it out based on like the best ideas or the best recommendations. Another thing that my friend Olivia taught me was from fusor.net, she ended up scraping this entire website and converting it to embeddings. And she made this thing called OpenFusor. So what this is literally just a queryable openfusor.com. So instead of browsing like all this form, like I don't want to go through this shit. So I can just go like, what is the best bubble counter to use? And it will like instantly query it. And not only find like an explanation, it gives me a link to it too. So here I can read about like different types of bubble counters, and it has like all this like knowledge just there. And I can just quickly like skim through this without, having too much context and things.
Nah, amazing. It was very cool.
Yeah. So in addition to just using Claude, you can just build your own things. Like this is kind of the power of software, is that you can just take information and digest it into like such a queryable form, and extremely fast too. I know she has a public repo for this, and she's been an incredible help, with this whole project. So like things like this are very helpful, and also like puts files and stuff here. So just very simple interface. It's nothing complicated about this. It's just a Streamlit app, but it works so well.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, wow, this is so cool. And I can see myself definitely wanting to do this for much other things. Maybe not building a fusor, but back on the fusor process. Okay. So if you look at your tweet, you start ordering these parts, they start showing up. So walk us maybe through, what was going on, maybe week by week. What was kind of the process like, and maybe what were the hardest, most challenging areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think week on week, so I would just start with like fusor, how to build or something, and then just like open you can see I opened like every single link on here. I've watched every single video. So first thing was just digesting everything like into my brain before doing it into Claude. And I actually wanted to know what is going on myself. And then just kind of reading these setups and like seeing what's going on. So this is like very inspired by my setup, or like I was inspired by this setup, at least for the vacuum chamber. And so I kind of mimicked a lot of this. So I just like Control A, Control C, and put it all into Claude. And then went from there. And then it was like, okay, what parts do I need? So here they have some certain materials, but a lot of these materials are actually kind of wrong. And so what I did was with Claude, I would just talk with it and ask it, okay, what materials look right, what don't look right. So for example, like this certain nylon spacers. So I just dumped in the McMaster part piece here, and it just gave me all these details. Like I didn't understand what any of this meant. So this would just break it down for me and explain it. And then I would just go on McMaster, and then I would just start looking up things. I'd be like, okay, this looks right. I'm going to buy this. And then, yeah, like this is extremely intimidating, by the way. If you're just like a software guy looking at this, like, you have no clue what's going on here. So I would just like,
I know exactly what you mean. Like for me, my use of like Claude and GPT has been like, build websites, build apps, like do specific sort of like pointed problem solving, but very much as like an accelerant. Like I could write the code myself, but it's just like solves a few steps for me, so I don't have to do the boring JavaScript, like that kind of thing. But if you ask me to hardware, like similar to you, I'd be like, I have no, like I'm looking at this list going, I don't know which one's what. What does that even mean? Like, what should I do with it? So it's amazing that you're able to like pick from Claude, go to McMaster website, figure out, okay, yeah, this sounds about right. Go get that, and then go back to Claude, I'm guessing, and just like stitch it all together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was very much like just like I trust Claude process. So I would just like take apart and it's like, what is, and then just put that, and then it would somehow figure it out. Let's see if this works. It might not, but just like trusting it to an extent, but also being smart enough to, I guess, verify things, especially on parts, because that's like one thing you don't want to, be wrong on. I guess this is completely wrong. So that's why you should trust it.
There is no way anybody's going to be wrong on picking the wrong component from this page of random numbers out here. Okay, I have to ask a question, which I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds, and I saw some people reply, which is this safe? Right? Like, you building something nuclear and fusion related in dorm room, how do you think about that?
Yeah. So this is, again, something I talked with Claude about beforehand. My three biggest fears were, one, death from like high voltage, death from like radiation, death from like X-rays. And this is why I made this. It's like steeping on like the edge of like what is possible versus like how much risk can I take. And I enjoy like a lot of risk. It doesn't like really hit me until like I'm actually doing something dangerous. So with the risks, because this is like a demo fusor and it's only plasma, the electrons that get shot out only move at like only have like 3 kilo electrovolts of energy, which is nowhere enough to like do any damage. Why? Because the glass actually shields everything and just gets absorbed by it. So even if you put your face towards it, you're like chilling. And same with the neutrons. Like the whole issue of like nuclear fusion is that neutrons come and like damage your DNA, but there's no neutrons here yet. When it comes to full fusor, things are very different. And to fix that, I just kind of consulted almost like I just found like every best nuclear physicist, every like young, 12-year-old. I found this guy who made a 12-year-old fusor, and he made this fusor when he was 12 years old. I talked to him. I went on a walk with him in San Francisco. I found this guy named Kuba from like MIT, and I just talked to him about like high voltage engineering, just constantly just talk to all the smartest people I know. And I would have like very long email threads with people, like just like thinking about ideas, like questioning all their arguments, whatever. And I would feed all these conversations. So I use something also like Granola for like capturing these conversations. This was with a friend named Kuba, and he would tell me everything, and it would just like automatically like summarize these. And I would again fed this into Claude. So yeah, he told me a lot about like how a lot of the physics stuff works behind it.
Nice.
Okay.
Awesome.
Wow. Okay. First of all, stay safe, and you have a higher risk tolerance, maybe a lot, but this is very, very cool. I guess. Okay. So one question is, you've been kind of pushing Claude in some very, very interesting ways, and first of all, like why Sonnet? And I think that's maybe an obvious question, but also, what do you find it doing well and not doing well? What have you kind of learned of the behavior of some of these models from you using this?
Yeah. So why Sonnet? I think, well, at this point, I feel it's better than 4.0. Also, for me, it doesn't even matter what the model is anymore. Cloud projects on its own is what I pay for, just because it's able to, capture all this knowledge in this like one mind. It's almost like a special brain for me. And I can kind of like pull knowledge from it and just like slowly, converse with it in a very specific manner. And that alone like wins it for me. Like ChatGPT doesn't have anything like that. And that's like a big, game changer, at least for me. In terms of, sorry, I forgot what your second question was. Was it?
What do you find the models doing well and not doing well?
Yeah, so I can give a very specific example with. So for the fusor, a lot of great things are for like explaining like the math and physics behind things. So I was trying to understand how Burnham's straw lung radiation worked, and like understanding the math specifically behind it, because that's what I'm more curious about. If I can prove the math, then I can prove it safe. And that's kind of what I was doing. And so I can, from this, tell like how fast electrons are moving. And I'm like, okay, this is actually completely safe. And just like comparing that. And of course I double check my math or something, but this like teaches me in like a very good way, a lot of the physics and math behind it. And actually I can understand like, okay, what's going on here, and explain that to somebody in a very simple manner. Another thing that's really good at is diagramming. And this is a very, very underrated feature of it. So if I can ask it, what are the pins on my vacuum gauge, and give me a diagram, say in React or something, it can actually do that like really well. And so I think this is like a byproduct of, Anthropic feeding in a lot of like a lot of SVG data, a lot of React data into their like training. And so as a result, it's become like quite good. So let's see what this looks like. So right now it's generating all the pins. I don't even know if this will be good, but let's just, I guess, wait for it. So the reason it knows all this information, by the way, is because I fed in the data sheet. So if you so you can see like this is quite interesting. So it has like a somewhat decent like idea of what these pins look like. And now I can know like a better understanding of how to connect things. And of course, this is all from like the MKS data sheet. So if I go on this website right here, you can see like you can compare both of these things, and you can like verify all your claims. So yeah.
Oh, I think one of the things I'm really taking away from this is, I guess, two parts. One is just the power of long context windows, because the way I interpret this is like the project's metaphor is basically, one, I kind of like the idea of like, you just kind of dump everything in there, like Google Drive or Dropbox or one of those folders. But on the other side of things is just the power of like long, and like you said, being able to ask it. I guess the second thing I'm really taking away from this is honestly how you are using this, which is you just kind of like, I'm just going to stick everything I have in there, email threads, PDFs, invoices, there's so many things in there. A second is I'm going to trust it. And for me, that's fascinating in a sense of like what the future could be, where instead of you having your data in one place, say your Gmail or your desktop or your file system or the internet, you basically just stick everything in AI and then you interact with it. This is very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, this is like, Google is essentially that too, right? Everything you like search, you're kind of trusting based on, one, if I search about like just any radiation, I'm just trusting the person who wrote this Wikipedia article to have written the right thing. And so it has been, we have kind of abstracted another layer about this now. So the way I see it, we're not actually doing anything different at this point. We're just like trusting the AI that uses information that humans made. And of course, it can hallucinate and whatever, but I think to an extent, it can be trustable just because if you feed it the right information and it's able to cite it correctly, then you're totally fine. Like at this point, I know this is citing it because I've uploaded the document. Whereas if I didn't upload it, then I would be much more, careful of it just because it wouldn't know the knowledge, right? So it's really a matter of like giving it the right information and then verifying it. And then once you verify, you're like, okay, let's just try it and see what happens.
I love it. I guess, one question is, if you're Anthropic or OpenAI, I'm sure a lot of those folks are watching this or have reached out to you or will reach out to you if they should be. What feature request, like what would you want this to do that it just didn't work right now and you wish it worked, or things just don't exist and you want this to exist in the UI or in model functionality?
Yeah, so like I actually already told Anthropic this, but like one very basic and like dumb feature that isn't even there. So when you add content to this, you should be able to upload links. Like I'm probably going to build this on my own at this point, but it's like frankly kind of ridiculous why it doesn't exist. Like I can upload device and text content, but I should be pasting an entire website into here. It should just like do it for me. And that seems like a very much one dayable feature. Like I don't think it's that hard. So like things like that, and also something with like even just being able to like use a voice. For example, I use something called Whisper, which is like extremely just very good dictation. Whisper Flow, sorry, this is by a smaller company. And so I use this. So when I was building it, I would like use my one hand, like building the thing, and I would just hold another hand being like, okay, what is this port for the MKS901P? And then just like immediately enter and then go. So just extremely fast, like, workflows, turnaround speeds, and just like getting information out as quickly as possible. And that was kind of like the whole mantra behind it.
Okay. And what's next for you, HudZah? Like what happens from here? Step 1 is done.
Mm-hmm. Step 2 is now building the full fusor. So this has been, I think I was getting quite a lot of like things thrown at me. It's like, oh, this is not full fusor, not equal fusion. But this is very much a first step. Like I think if I started doing the full fusor, I would be dead right now. So I'm very glad I went with the move of doing like step 1 and step 2, as opposed to just going for the full things. This was like my exact step 1. And my goal for this was to get into something called the Plasma Club, which is like this club on, fusor.net, where if you achieve plasma and show the proof, you get into it. And next is the Neutron Club. It's like where you can detect neutrons. And so, yeah, that's my actual goal. I'm not like motivated. It's like my motivation right now isn't like, oh, fix energy or whatever. It might be, but right now it's like, I only just want to get into the Neutron Club.
Okay, multiple thoughts. First, I would say is if anybody is giving you pain on X for not building a full fusor, just send them my way and Aarthi's way. We'll set them right. The fact that you're here building this in your college room in just a few weeks without having a background is so cool. It's just so good. So if somebody gives you pain, like send them our way.
I think the question I have is, what is sort of over the last few days, what's like sort of the reaction been? Like, from X people reaching out, now you're just seeing like millions of people watching this. Yeah. What's like range of reactions you've seen?
Yeah, so I think it's mostly noise. The only reason I posted this on Twitter was to apply for funding from Emergent Ventures. And I just want to put it so I can like link it to Tyler when I sent it to him. You guys are probably familiar with him.
Yeah, he's been on the show. He's definitely. Okay, I will make sure that he watches this. I'll make sure he watches this episode.
Yeah. So he funded me in a past term because I used to build hydroponic farms in my dorm room. That's maybe another story, but and so he funded me for that. And I've been on a gap year at this point from university. And so that's been funding me. So like to spend like a few $1,000s on this was kind of stupid. Like everyone's like, oh, this is like the dumbest shit you're doing. Like your runway has been like cut in like half by building this shit. So I was like, oh, whatever. And so this was basically to make a stronger case to apply to for just more funding.
By the what does more funding look like?
Well, just more money to build the full fusor, because the actual fusor, like the demo fusor here was around like a couple $1,000s, like $2,000, $3,000, but the full one would be maybe around 10,000. But it should be an issue. Like worst case, I can also like fund it myself. But I'm just gonna.
I'm pretty sure we can find ways to get you.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be an issue. Yeah. I'm not concerned about that. It's just like easier. And also like yeah.
I think. First of all, this is so cool, and I guess I also love the fact you want to get in the Neutron Club, which says a good throwaway sentence. I guess one question is, you seem to be using AI so natively, and so do some of your peers. And I guess what are you seeing people use Sonnet or GPT-4o as native parts of workflow? For example, you were talking to me about sticking some of your schedules into Sonnet and getting things back? Like, what are you seeing people use any one of these models for in ways maybe not everyone is really plugged into?
Yeah, I think, well, so obviously the basic one is just ways of like communicating with it. So, like coding with it. You guys probably saw like the 8-year-old using Cursor. And a lot of my inspiration with using AI actually just comes from how children use it. And I think the way they use it, they're actually the massive prompt engineers. I've seen like cousins of mine use it. And the way they talk with like ChatGPT, I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. And then I just like copy that. So I think I just want to learn from like people younger than me, not older than me, which is probably ironic, but not ironic, just like weird. But I think it's kind of fascinating because in the same way that, like people older than us may have seen the internet or like how people would Google everything, it's like a similar thing that's happening. And, children actually have a better insight on this than me or any of us at this point. So it's like kind of worth like copying them if you think about it. In terms of, that was like, I guess my answer to it. So in terms of like what else people are working on, it's like a range of everything, right? So one thing that, people have been using is like a lot for engineering. So one of my friends, Brian, made something called Globe, which is a bunch of AI experiments. So like Translator is a good example, and I'll just show you like quickly how this works. So it's like, okay, how to build a rocket. And this will, what this does me, let's see if it even is still up. But what it does is it can like condense knowledge into different formats. So here it can give me into like graphs, it can give me into like flowcharts, and like different types of, visualizations for using LLMs. And these are things I think people don't really know exist. And same with something like Index. So this is like, he made it as well. So like how to build a fusor. And then it would just give me like this information, and then I can ask follow-up questions. So like, what is radiation? And then I can just use it like a canvas and just keep going in every direction. Yeah. So it's just like random tools like these that I don't think people know exist.
I love it. I was talking to Anil Varanasi of Meter, and they kind of had this really viral launch the other day where they have this UI where you have a model which operates on top of all the network infrastructure, but then you have essentially a canvas/notebook style interface, which is getting in all this real-time data. And I almost, when I look at how you're using it, you're using the projects metaphor as really a canvas. Like, I'm going to stick everything in here. This is my table, my work area of things, and then you interact with it. But look, I just want to say this is so cool. And I bet that everybody who watches this feels like they're getting a glimpse of a future. Maybe the way people use AI is not exactly how we're using it, but it seems like you're knocking on some doors, and one of those doors is going to open up, and this is just so cool. So I want to say, amazing work. 2 is as a parent, and the parent said us like, don't die, please stay safe.
Yeah.
Every time we say I double check the calculations, part of me going like, I really hope you know what you're doing. So stay safe. And how can people reach you or help you?
Yeah, I guess on the parents' part, my parents on our WhatsApp group chat, like, are you sure this is legal? And so I totally understand.
Well, that's such an Asian parenting. A,
no, it
is it legal? Yeah, you're going to get in trouble. Then B, is it harmful? But no, that's not.
Yeah, I'm not very good with like legal things. So it's like, I don't really, my first thing that comes to mind isn't like, it was illegal or will I die? It's like more like, oh, can I build this? And that's probably not the best mentality always. But anyways, in terms of how to reach me, my website, I'm just HudZah everywhere. So like I bought this domain name when I was like 10 years old. So this is my website. Twitter is just Hud_Zah. You can just find me there. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably the best ways to like hit me up.
HudZah, this is so cool.
Very cool.
I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for coming on the show. And I just love the building spirit. You're just like hacking away and building things and just learning as you go. It's just inherently cool. And 2, I really thought the point about like learning from kids is sort of profound. There are a lot of ways where I see, like, we have a 5-year-old who I see she works or works with like GPT photo, especially on the white side of things, which I find fascinating because it's super, super AI native in a very, very natural way, which I think is very interesting. And I think you have something, there's something really profound there on like just learning from people who've not been exposed to the internet way, but just going like straight into, working with GPT kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So cool. Keep going. Look, when you make the Neutron Club, you should come back on the show. I want to see more.
Oh, for sure. I'll actually demo in person then at that point. I wish I had my whole setup. I actually So one of the hardest parts of this you asked was like bringing this whole thing on a checked luggage. And as a brown guy, so and I managed to get through, so it worked out. So that we're good.
Yeah. There's nothing weird when you're like, yeah, I'm just building a nuclear fuser in my college dorm room. Nothing to look at here. But no, really cool. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this will want to reach out and find ways to help. But keep going, man. This is awesome. Well, and thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much.